Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, two giants of the ancient world who forever altered the course of history. Two exceptional leaders, relentless conquerors, and brilliant strategists whose exploits have transcended the centuries. But what if we were to pit them against each other? Who would emerge victorious? Let us find out. To do so, we will analyze 6 categories using clear and objective criteria, choosing a winner in each. But first, let's briefly explore the histories of our two protagonists. Alexander the Great was born in 356 BC in Macedonia. He was the son of King Philip II and was educated in his childhood by the great philosopher Aristotle. At the age of 20, after his father's death, he ascended to the throne. Endowed with unparalleled courage and tactical ability, he brought the all-powerful Persia to its knees and reached the ends of the known world. His premature death at only 32 years old prevented him from continuing with his grandiose plans, which included invading the Arabian Peninsula, the North African coast, and even the Iberian Peninsula. Gaius Julius Caesar was born in 100 BC in Rome, into a powerful family. Thanks to his ingenuity and ambition, he rose through the ranks of Roman politics. But he was also a lawyer, a magnificent orator, a writer, and even had time in his busy life to be captured by pirates. However, his great coup came as a military commander when he conquered Gaul, which granted him immense power. Finally, he defied the Senate, crossed the Rubicon with his troops, and seized the title of dictator for life. His assassination at the age of 55 marked the end of the Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire under his great-nephew, Augustus. With that said, let's begin with the first of our 6 categories. Alexander the Great, in an impressive 12-year period, expanded his empire from Macedonia to the gates of India. During the process, he invaded Asia Minor, proclaimed himself Pharaoh of Egypt, and subjugated the entire Persian Empire, which he defeated in the battles of the Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela, facing much larger armies, although less prepared. In doing so, he became the ruler of a territory that spanned the staggering figure of 5.2 million square kilometers. As for Julius Caesar, his great military achievement was the conquest of Gaul, completed in about 8 years. The most important battle was that of Alesia, a masterpiece we will explore further later on. Gaul, with its 500,000 square kilometers, would later become crucial for the Roman Empire, allowing its borders to stretch to the Rhine and the English Channel. Caesar was also the first Roman general to venture into the unknown lands of Britannia and Germania, even though he did not carry out significant operations there. At this point, it's important to consider the different motivations of both figures. Alexander the Great's primary goal was to expand his domains, while Julius Caesar saw war as a tool to gain political power and money to pay off his debts. Moreover, conquering small, well-defended territories can sometimes be more difficult than conquering larger, less protected ones. Even so, the 500,000 square kilometers conquered by Julius Caesar cannot compete with the more than 5 million of Alexander the Great. So the Macedonian emerges victorious in this category. Military skills. Alexander the Great was a true genius in tactics and strategy. He masterfully used the hammer and anvil maneuver, in which his infantry forces, the Macedonian phalanx, contained and fixed the enemy, while his heavy cavalry encircled and massacred them from behind. In the decisive Battle of Gaugamela against the Persian king Darius III, Alexander launched a risky diagonal cavalry charge that created a breach in the Persian army that proved fatal, leading to the collapse of Darius's hordes. Julius Caesar was undoubtedly another master of the art of war. His own work, Commentari de Bello Gallico, which documents his campaigns in Gaul, is testament to this. One of his most memorable actions took place at the Battle of Alesia, 52 BC. In this city, the Gallic chief Vercingetorix took refuge with 80,000 men. To besiege them, Caesar deployed his troops surrounding the city and built a wall of fortifications. Then, upon learning of the arrival of Gallic reinforcements, Caesar built a second parallel wall to protect his own camp. Thanks to this, he was able to defend against a Gallic attack from both sides and achieve a hard-fought victory despite being outnumbered. Additionally, Caesar also faced armies technologically equivalent to his own, such as that of Pompey the Great, whom he defeated during Caesar's civil war. In conclusion, even if both figures demonstrated exceptional military skills, Alexander stands out for the breadth of tactics he used and his brutal effectiveness, as, unlike Caesar, he never lost a battle. Thus, Alexander once again takes the victory in this category. Character and leadership. Alexander the Great had a natural charisma and the ability to inspire his troops, which was enhanced by his willingness to lead by example, taking risks in battle. He also demonstrated immense ambition and determination, allowing him to expand his empire to unimaginable limits. However, he had an overly impulsive nature, as evidenced by the fact that he killed his friend Clitus the Black during an alcohol-fueled argument, even though Clitus had saved his life years before. Similarly, Alexander had a tendency towards totalitarianism, which caused no few internal conflicts. Julius Caesar was equally notable for his dominant personality and his dazzling ability to influence people. His military leadership was characterized by his closeness to his troops and his intelligence in taking calculated risks. His cunning, talent for oratory, and ability to connect with the masses also helped him rise and consolidate political power in Rome. Yet, like Alexander, he had an insatiable ambition, which, as we will see later, eventually led to his downfall. At this stage, we can establish a comparison that, although with many nuances, is interesting. Alexander had to stop his conquests because his soldiers, exhausted, refused to continue advancing. However, when Julius Caesar decided to cross the Rubicon on his way to take Rome, his soldiers, knowing that it was a momentous and irreversible decision, decided to follow him. Beyond this, we find ourselves before two similar personalities in several aspects: charisma, strong temperament, inclination for absolutism, and, at times, benevolence towards their enemies. In any case, Caesar's greater self-control, along with his impact and adaptability in the complex Roman political environment, give him the advantage in this category. Political skills. Alexander the Great demonstrated remarkable political vision in his attempts to consolidate his vast empire. He promoted Hellenism, that is, the spread of Greek culture and its blending with local cultures, but at the same time adopted a policy of religious tolerance to avoid uprisings. In parallel, he encouraged marriages between Greeks and Persians to intertwine and unify both peoples. He was similarly skillful in showing his acceptance of the conquered cultures, proclaiming himself Pharaoh in Egypt and King of Kings in Persia. In contrast, he did not build a very solid administration, which, coupled with the lack of a clear successor after his death, led to the rapid fragmentation of his empire. As for Julius Caesar, he was incredibly skillful in the political arena. His ability to manipulate the Roman Republican system allowed him to amass power and become a dictator. Having achieved this, he enacted reforms at a frantic pace, such as the reorganization of the Roman calendar, which came to be called the Julian calendar, and was used for more than 1,600 years. Likewise, he simplified the judicial system, leaving only two classes of judges, reduced public spending, increased penalties for various crimes, and even granted citizenship rights to anyone who practiced medicine. Nevertheless, the concentration of power and his ambition led him to be seen as a threat by the senators, who had become mere puppets in his hands, resulting in his assassination in 44 BC. Ultimately, both leaders showed notable political skills, but Caesar's ability to reform and organize such a complex administrative system as that of ancient Rome gives him the victory over Alexander the Great in this category. In the field of economics, Alexander the Great, through the founding of many cities, spread Greek economic practices, including the monetization of the economy and the promotion of trade, which stimulated the flow of goods and generated a certain level of prosperity. Conversely, we do not have many details about his specific economic policies, and while it is considered that he did not introduce major changes, some historians believe that he had an excessive desire to collect taxes and that the average inhabitant of the empire did not experience a significant improvement in their economy. For his part, Julius Caesar carried out multiple reforms that boosted the Roman economy, such as the restructuring of financial administration. He also imposed tariffs on foreign goods, incentivized childbirth as a future investment by providing compensations to large families, and limited the number of slaves that could be used in certain jobs to create more opportunities for free citizens. Finally, he founded colonies and distributed land among his veterans, which stimulated the economy in the conquered regions. It is worth noting that both figures amassed immense loot and countless slaves from their campaigns. This undoubtedly caused severe harm to the direct victims, but in addition, it is likely that it did not translate into an enrichment of the Macedonian and Roman populations, as most of the benefits would have gone to Alexander and Julius Caesar. Even so, Caesar's multiple and effective economic reforms make him the winner in this category. Cultural impact and legacy. The cultural impact of Alexander the Great was profound and long-lasting, primarily through Hellenism, the fusion of Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian cultures, which led to a massive cultural exchange that influenced architecture, art, philosophy, and science throughout the ancient world. Alexander's vision of a unified world under Hellenism deeply affected Roman, Byzantine, and even medieval Islamic civilizations. Cities like Alexandria, in Egypt, became cultural and knowledge centers that lasted for centuries. In contrast, his empire quickly fragmented after his death, failing to leave behind a solid and lasting administrative system that would stand the test of time like his cultural influence did. On the other hand, Julius Caesar was key to the Romanization of conquered lands, spreading the Latin language, Roman law, and culture throughout the Mediterranean, laying the foundations of Western civilization. Additionally, unlike Alexander, Caesar's influence endured within the power structures, as his rise and reforms marked the end of the Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire, a system that would last 500 years and under which Rome would reach its peak. In summary, while both leaders left a deep cultural impact, Alexander's Hellenism spread across more diverse regions and had a broader influence on art and science than Caesar's Romanization. However, Caesar's administrative system endured for centuries, whereas Alexander's quickly disintegrated. Therefore, a tie seems the fairest result in this category. Ultimately, after comparing these two emblematic titans of universal history, Julius Caesar emerges victorious. Although both were monumental and unique figures, Julius Caesar stood out in more aspects and laid the foundations for what would be one of the most influential and enduring empires humanity has ever seen.